Silence was the first language I ever learned. In our home, quiet was discipline, not neglect. My father was a man of few words, his love expressed through actions, not speech. He woke before sunrise, prayed silently, drank tea without sugar, and left for work, his presence commanding respect. My mother, warm and expressive, filled the home with life, but I was drawn to my father, seeking the acknowledgement I never received. Childhood was a blend of admiration, confusion, and yearning. I wanted his approval, but never understood his way of giving it. I longed for words of praise, yet his way of showing love was subtle, fixing things without mention, ensuring we were provided for, defending us quietly from criticism. I failed to see these sacrifices as love and instead felt an emotional void. As I grew, I noticed what was missing. Praise, affection, conversation, all absent. My father's nod of approval was consistent, yet insufficient for the emotional needs of a child. Comparisons with other families deepened my sense of distance. Yet, beneath the silence, sacrifices were being made I did not yet comprehend. I did not know then that his quiet resilience and protective presence were expressions of love I could not yet understand. By the time I reached my early teens, I began questioning his methods. I started forming judgments based on my observations of other fathers, envying their overt warmth and encouragement. I believed that their way was right and mine was lacking. These thoughts began building walls between us, walls made of assumptions, pride, and misunderstanding. Adolescence sharpened emotions and perceptions. I wanted acknowledgement, approval, and connection. School achievements were met with a nod, failures with no guidance. Resentment grew quietly. I compared my father to other fathers, envying their visible affection and encouragement. Arguments were minimal but cold, our words chosen like weapons, silence following as punishment. I convinced myself he did not care and that his generation was incapable of love. My pride prevented me from expressing need or vulnerability. However, subtle moments of his quiet protection and care went unnoticed as I clung to my belief that his distance equaled indifference. Emotional distance became routine, setting the stage for choices driven by ego rather than understanding. Even small interactions became loaded with unspoken tension. A suggestion from him felt like control, advice felt like criticism. My attempts to seek understanding were met with silence or practical solutions devoid of emotional engagement. Slowly, the bond that had once existed began to fray, leaving a gap of unacknowledged feelings and growing isolation. At 22, I received a job offer in another city. Though modest, it promised independence and escape from my father's unspoken scrutiny. Announcing my departure, my mother worried. My father remained silent. The night before leaving, he visited my room and said, "Life will test you. Don't let pride stop you from coming back." I shrugged it off, misinterpreting it as indifference or unnecessary advice. Leaving home, I carried excitement mixed with bitterness. Pride and desire for autonomy overshadowed understanding. I never hugged him, never looked back, confident that distance would grant freedom and personal growth. Yet, this decision planted seeds of regret, setting the stage for life's trials and the realization that love can exist beyond words. The city was bright, loud, and overwhelming. Independence came with isolation. I quickly learned that freedom had a cost. The lessons my father had silently imparted through discipline and responsibility became clearer only as I struggled to navigate life on my own. City life proved harsh. The job drained me physically and emotionally. Exploitative bosses, indifferent colleagues, and financial pressure made survival a daily challenge. Friends disappeared when convenience faded. Loneliness set in, and pride prevented me from calling home. The independence I sought felt hollow. I realized that autonomy came at the cost of connection, and silence from my father now echoed through my life in a profound, haunting way. Months of hardship eroded confidence. Small failures accumulated, and self-doubt became a constant companion. Yet, I still held on to pride, believing I could endure everything alone. Every difficulty reminded me of my father's words, words I had ignored but could no longer dismiss entirely. Life's trials mounted, but pride continued to dictate my actions. I refused to return home, believing that asking for help would signify weakness. The ego-driven need to prove myself blinded me to the wisdom of my father's advice. Internal conflict grew, and I began to understand, too late, the value of the connection I had taken for granted. I replayed moments in my mind, the nods, the quiet presence, the subtle guidance. What had seemed cold now revealed itself as the deepest form of love, patient, steadfast, enduring. Pride, however, kept me from bridging the gap until circumstances forced my hand. Then came the call that shifted everything. My mother's trembling voice informed me that my father had suffered a heart attack. Panic and guilt overtook me as I rushed home, memories flooding back. The distance I had maintained for years now felt unbearable. Every missed opportunity to understand him, every unspoken word, weighed heavily upon me. The journey was long, each mile filled with reflection on my own arrogance, my misunderstandings, and my pride. The realization hit hard. Time had passed, and I had squandered opportunities to connect with the one person who had always quietly believed in me. At the hospital, my father lay fragile. The man who had once seemed imposing and untouchable now appeared small, human, vulnerable. I held his hand and whispered, "I'm here, Dad." He opened his eyes and spoke words that would haunt me forever. "I knew you would come back. I just hoped I'd be alive to see it." Minutes later, he passed. The silence I had misinterpreted all these years revealed its true nature: love, trust, faith. In those final moments, I understood the depth of his care, the strength of his patience, and the wisdom of his restraint. In the aftermath, grief mixed with clarity. His last words guided me through understanding the nature of love, sacrifice, and patience. Pride and ego are fleeting, connection and presence are enduring. Today, I carry his lessons, sharing them to remind others to value unspoken love, to return before it is too late, and to recognize that silence can be as profound as speech. Life is finite, and the echoes of words, both said and unsaid, shape our journey forever. Through this story, I learned that understanding and appreciation often come after loss, but the lessons endure. Every moment, every interaction, every unspoken word contributes to the bonds we hold. Cherish them while you can, for some opportunities never return.